Hey guys, we're going to create SVIs, we're going to assign them IP addresses, we're going to work with VTP, and we're going to configure some base trunks. Let's get started. Hey guys, so we're working with topology 1, lab 1, from the video I posted yesterday. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's going to be a link right up there in that corner to the video previous to this. So today we're going to continue this series, which is the very first configuration lab of this topology. What we're going to look at today is we're going to configure some base commands. So that's going to be the no IP domain lookup, host name, logging synchronous, stuff to just make the configuration a little easier while we're going through these 9 devices. All 9 of them are switches. Then we're going to configure some base trunks to get trunking to work between these 9 devices. And then we're going to configure VTP. Once we configure VTP and assign the correct VTP roles, we're going to go ahead and create the VLANs and then create the SVIs that are needed on each of those switches and assign them IP addresses. Let's take a look at the topology, take a look at the devices we're going to be configuring, and let's get to it. Alright guys, so today we're working with just the HQ network. That is this network right here. And we're only working with the switches. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure the base commands first. So the no IP domain lookup, we're going to configure a logging synchronous on the consoles, and we're going to configure the host name so we know which devices they are. Then once we get done with that, we're going to go ahead and actually create trunks on the core and distribution. So we're going to actually statically assign the interfaces that are connecting the other switches as trunk type and manually configure it to .1q. So the access switches running DTP should automatically accept that trunk negotiation and have a trunk between the core, distribution, and access. Once we configure those trunks, it's going to allow us to create a VTP domain, and that VTP domain and all the replication data should be able to flow out across the trunk interfaces and it'll make our VLAN configuration a lot easier. Once we create the VLANs themselves, we're going to create the switch virtual interfaces, SVIs, on the core, and then on the distribution and on the access switches, we're going to create the LAN management SVI for assigning the LAN management IP address. With the HQ network, that is VLAN 60. So let's get started with the configuration. We're going to start with core 1, go to core 2, then distribution, then we're going to work our way down to the access level. Alright guys, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with core 1, and we're going to expand the console out just a little bit. I have that font just a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. And as you can see, this switch has been untouched. All these devices have never been touched before for configuration. So go ahead, no, hit enter, enable, big T. We're going to do a no IP domain lookup. That's going to allow us to not get the looking for domain name or looking to resolve the address if we type a command wrong. So that's going to save us a lot of time if we mistype something. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to hit line console 0 and do logging synchronous. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to type, and then if there's a console message that comes up or any type of message, it's going to scroll but then give us our command prompt back what in the middle of us typing. So it's not going to be we're typing a little bit, the message shows up, and then we're continuing typing at the end of the message. It's all going to stay in one line. Okay, and then we're going to do host name, HQ core 1, okay, and we're going to do a do write. We're going to write the configuration to the startup config. Then we're going to go over here just a little bit. We're actually going to look at these interfaces. 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Interface range DI 1, 1, 1 through 4. Switch port trunk ncap.1q. Switch port mode trunk. So we're going to statically set all 4 of those interfaces to .1q encapsulation for the trunking encapsulation, and then we're going to switch them all to a trunk mode. So if we do an end and a show interface trunk, as you can see here, and this out just a little bit, all 4 of them are now trunking, which is good. Okay, so now that we got those 4 interfaces configured as trunk, now we're going to configure the 4 interfaces that are linking core 1 and core 2 together as trunks. So looking at the topology, it's config T, interface range GI1, 01 through 4, switch port trunk encap .1q, switch port mode trunk. And just to validate that, what we're going to do is we're actually going to shut those interfaces down. And you see all 4 of them turn red. Then we're going to do a no shut. And then we're going to end and do write. Or now we're going to just write. And we're going to show interface trunk. And then you can see all 8 of them are trunking. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing, but on core 2. So we're going to start back from scratch. All right, so this should be real quick. Enable config T, no IP domain lookup, line console 0, logging synchronous, exit host name, and the host name for this device is HQ42. I'm going to do a do write. Okay. And we're going to look at these interfaces coming off of here and make sure they're all right. 111, 112, 113, 114. Okay. So it's the same thing. So we're going to do interface range GI111 through 4, switch port trunk encap port trunk encapsulation .1q, switch port mode trunk, right, and then we're going to do interface range GI101 through 4, switch port trunk .1q, switch port mode trunk. Even though it was trunking, we still manually set them to trunk. The DTP did allow the trunking from core 1 to core 2, but we still assigned it to trunks on both of these. We're going to do the same thing with these distribution routers or distribution switches, excuse me. And once we do those ports between the distributions themselves and the distributions to access, all 4 of those accesses should have trunk ports leading to one of these 2 distribution switches, which should then lead into one of these 2 cores. Then we can start configuring VTP. So now that you know the commands, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my picture off the screen. I'm actually just going to go ahead and configure both of these and the interfaces that are associated with them. I'm going to speed it up a little bit so you guys can still see the configuration going on, but it's going to be a little quicker. Okay guys, so all the 9 switches are configured with the base commands of, CDP run. So I enabled that so we interfaces themselves. We enabled the CDP. We configured the trunks on the core, the distribution, and the external switches. The access switches are going to inherit a trunk because of DTP. We'll go through that a little bit later. Then the last part we did was we configured the logging synchronous within the console port. So we did all those. Now it's time to see if VTP will replicate. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on to our HQ core. Actually, before we even do that, we're going to assign the VTP roles. So the VTP roles are going to be as follows, and we'll take a look at that right now. Okay, so the VTP servers will be the core and core 1. Okay, then the external switch right there will be in VTP transparent. So it'll be part of the VTP domain, but it will not inherit any VLANs. It won't inherit anything that modifies its VLAN database, but it will pass along those VTP messages to any switches that it's connected to. Then we have all of the clients, and those clients are all the access switches and distribution switches. Right there. Those are all going to be configured as client, because what we want to do is we want to maintain our VLAN database on our core routers, on the routers that are going to be doing the inter-VLAN routing. So what should happen is we can figure new VLANs on core 1 or core 2, and all the VLAN information will replicate down to the distribution and over to the HQ access switches. So then the external switches, the external switch, it will receive that VTP packet, but it will not do anything with it. It will just forward it on as long as it remains as part of the same VTP domain. Let's take a look at that configuration, and we'll get right back to it. Okay, so we're going to start with access switches. Okay, and this is really easy. It's config T, and we're going to go to, actually before we can do that, we're going to go over to the core. Okay, I'm going to do a show Vtp status. Okay, so if you look right here, it's running version 2, and there's no VTP domain. Go to the access switches and do an end show VTP status. It's exactly the same. It's configured as server, it's running 2, and there's no VTP domain. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the core. We're going to do a config T, and we're going to VTP domain everyday -it end and write. So if we go back to that exact same access switch, right, where we didn't have a VTP domain previously, and we just rerun that, you're going to see we should have okay, so the core 2 has it. Let's go to the distribution. I just might be going a little too quick. If there's a distribution, go back to the access switch. And that access switch does not have it. What about this one here? Neither does that one. Show interface trunk. Okay, so we do have multiple trunks. Have it either. Weird, it should replicate across, but it's not. Either way, we will modify them ourselves. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back down here to core 1. And we're going to just copy that command. That way we type it in the exact same. And we're going to go up here. And we're going to paste it. We're going to do the same thing over here. Okay. So we should be able to do an end and be able to do a show Vtp status. Okay. We have that. So let's see if this device here has show Vtp status, has the domain name, and it does. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure this one as transparent. So that is now configured to transparent mode. Those two are already in server. And we're going to do config t vtp mode client. Config t vtp mode client. Helps if I'm at the correct prompt. Okay. So I'm not sure if it's a bug within Packet Tracer that's causing it. I'm not sure if it's STP, because what I'm thinking is the access switch here is the root. So let's do a show spanning VLAN 1. Show spanning VLAN 1. Yeah, so this is the root. And what we're going to do, we'll get into this in the next video or two, but we're going to configure the core as the root for spanning tree. That way I know the core and the VTP domain servers all line up. So we're going to do spanning tree VLAN or spanning tree root primary. Spanning tree VLAN 1 root primary. And if we do a show spanning tree VLAN 1, obviously it has to configure the whole layer 2 network, but it now says this bridge is the root. And then we're going to go over here and do a spanning tree VLAN 1 root secondary. Just so that way our topology lines up with what we're actually trying to do. We'll go into the commands and how to change that and what that all mean in a later video in this exact same playlist, so stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for when I do post new videos so you can be on top of the new configurations we're doing in these live environments. So now that all that has been replicated, right, we want to make sure we have everything set. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some VLANs. So we're going to go config t, and we're just type in VLAN 10, and then name can be user_1, and we're going to write that configuration quick. So I wrote that on HQ core 1. We're going to go to the external switch and go to show VLAN or show VTP status real quick. So if you look, this is in transparent mode. It's in the same domain, and the number of existing VLANs is 5. So if we do a show VLAN brief, right, it has VLAN 1. I'm gonna try to get everything on one. So it has VLAN 1, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Those are all default VLANs. Go to Core 1 and do a show Vtp status. See, the configuration revision is 2, and there's 6 revisions, right? So if we do a show VLAN brief, we have 110 and then all the defaults. Now let's go down here to access 1, right? This is what's nice about the VTP. Show VTP status. Again, revision 2, existing VLANs is 6, right? So if we do a show VLAN brief, it has the VLAN we just configured on the core. That's the whole point of VTP version 1 and version 2 is to replicate VLANs. Version 3, which the packet tracer does not support, will actually replicate MST configuration as well. And MST is what they call multiple spanning tree. So with PVST or rapid PVST, you have one spanning tree instance per VLAN. With MST, you can have one spanning tree instance per 10 VLANs. So your 10 VLANs you have tied to that instance all runs off one spanning tree. Saves some CPU, but it's a little bit more complex configuration. The packet tracer does not support that, so we're just going to be running PVST Plus for right now, and we'll get back to that in rapid PVST later on as well. Let's create some more VLANs on the core 1 now that we know that VTP is working. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. I'll probably fast forward a little bit. Okay, so in the previous video, when we were talking about what configuration we're going to do, we told you that VLAN 80 was going to be RSpan VLAN. So I made VLAN 80, and as you can see from the commands, I can actually do remote span. So we're going to do that. We're going to do remote span, and that's it. Okay, so we're going to do an end show VLAN brief, and there it shows all the VLANs. Now, if we do a show VLAN, it should right here where it says remote span VLANs, VLAN 80. So that's actually a VLAN made for the transportation medium for monitoring sessions. So you can monitor a port on one of the access switches, have that traffic duplicated and routed back to a device that is on the core. So we might experiment with that a little bit later. Let's go to the access switch 1. And we're going to do a show VTP status. So as you can see, that configuration revision number changed quite drastically. It's up to 16 now. And if we go to show VLAN brief, we have 10 through 80, and they're all named. So the VTP really saved us a lot of time going into the overall configuration of the VLANs. We don't have to do it on every switch. So now what we need to do is set up those SVIs for that LAN management, and those cores, core 1 and core 2, actually gets an SVI for each of the VLANs. So we're going to go ahead and walk through that on one of the VLANs on the core, specifically the LAN management VLAN. And I'm going to speed up the tape a little bit and do the rest, and we'll get right back with you. So we're going to go to the core and go to config T, and all is just interface VLAN, and we're going to do the LAN management is 60, right? So right there, it says, interface VLAN 60, change state to up, interface VLAN 60, change state to up, and then you just do an IP address, right? And that's 10.0.60.1.255.255.255.0, and right. So that's as easy as it is to create an SVI. You have to specify which VLAN you want, so interface, and then the VLAN you want. So it's VLAN 60, VLAN 40, VLAN 1020. Once you do that, you just create the IP address and do the subnet mask, and right there's your virtual interface. any port that you have assigned to that VLAN will be part of that switch virtual interface and be part of that subnet. So now we're gonna configure the rest of the switches with all the switch virtual interfaces they need, and we'll get right back to you. Okay, so we just now finished configuring. You can see these lights now kind of flickering quite a bit. So what we did is we're going to talk about LAN management, VLAN 60 right now. So 60.1 is core 1, 60.2 is core 2, 60.11 is distribution 1, 60.12 is distribution 2, right? So we have core layer 0, it's single digits, and then we have distribution level as double digits, but it's double digit 1 and then the appropriate number. And then the access list we have double digit, but it's 2, right, to signify the further down it gets. So we're going to do some pings and make sure we have some connectivity in the core. So we're going to do this real quick. So we have connectivity to the core, core 2. Distribution 1. Distribution 2. Access switch 1. Access switch 2. Access switch 3. Oops. And access switch 4 should be coming right along. So the only other one we don't have access to right now is the external switch. We're going to go ahead and knock that out real quick. And external switch is really part of the core network because if you can't access it, it can't get out. So we're going to actually give that a .3. So I created a virtual interface, as you can see. Now let's do a show interface brief. Show VLAN brief. But as you can see, it does not have VLAN 60. That's because it's in transparent mode. So we actually have to manually create that VLAN. And VLAN 60, so name is LAN EMT, and right, and show VLAN brief. There we go. Now we don't have any ports assigned to it yet, but we do have an IP address on that port. So if we go ping 3, it should come right up and be available. Might take a few pings. I might have to ping it one more time. I might have done that a little too quick. All right, one more time. There we go. So now it's pinging. Yeah, so I just did a little too early. Okay, so we have configured the base, base CDP and run. So we have the CDP enable. We have the logging synchronous command. We have no IP domain lookup. We have the host name. Those are the base commands that we wanted to do in this lab. The other thing we did was we configured the base trunks, meaning we just configured everything as a static trunk for the most part, and just got that trunk traffic flowing so it can communicate VTP traffic across from the core all the way through the access switches. In order to do that, we actually made a core 1 and core 2. Core 1 was root bridge, and core 2 is the secondary root bridge, just to make sure our layer 2 topology and then the switch's eyes was exactly how we wanted it to show up. Now we're going to actually look into VTP in an upcoming video very shortly, so we're going to look at that. The other thing we did is we created the VLANs, and the VTP replicated that VLAN configuration all the way across. We configured the access switches and distribution switches as clients. We configured the cores as servers and the external switches as transparent. We then assigned all the switch virtual interfaces, the respective devices. So core 1 and core 2 have a switch virtual interface for every VLAN minus VLAN 80. And then every other switch in the HQ network has a SVI for VLAN 60, which is the LAN management VLAN, which is the VLAN that's configured for those management IPs. So I hope you enjoyed this video. The playlist is going to be right here, this corner. Okay, right here. Okay, don't forget to click on that. View all the videos in this playlist. Over here is going to be a suggested video that YouTube thinks you should watch after watching this. Don't forget to push me over here, that little ugly mug, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Have a good day.